Welcome to episode 4 of The Leap Home, The Right Hand of God.
In this week's episode, Sam arrives in 1974 to find himself contesting a boxing match and swiftly ends up on the canvas before somehow managing to win the fight, learning that he is both contracted to a group of nuns who need his winnings to build a new chapel, and also leveraged by a businessman who needs him to take a fall. Sam must walk a tightrope to ensure all parties remain satisfied. But can he make the numbers work? Or will someone end up feeling shortchanged?
Roscoe, you come between us and the jelly-filled sugar glaze and sprinkles on top one more time, and I'll bust your nose!
Good evening, Ian. How are we?
Not too bad, Gerry. How are you?
Bit of a bust nose.
Have you?
Yep. I came between someone and a jelly, shelly, sprinkly, but I don't know. What did she say?
Sugar sprinkled. I assume it's some kind of donut.
Yeah.
Yeah. You like a donut?
I do. I'm sure we've discussed this recently.
No doubt. Whether it was on this show or...
I think it was in the Voyage Home.
Okay.
We talked about Winchell's Donuts.
We did. What do you think of episode 4?
Loved it.
It seems to me that the episodes are much more sort of driven by Sam's decisions than I remember. I remember Ziggy having more of a say in things.
Yes, at the moment it's him trying to... Yeah, he's calling the shots, as it were.
Yeah, I think part of that's because Ziggy doesn't know what's going on, and that's part of the story. And then maybe as it becomes more reliable to see what the computer has to say, they maybe put more weight on it.
Makes sense.
What do you think, as a technical connoisseur of the boxing game, what did you think of the boxing scenes?
I thought the ones with Sam in it were typical fare, not great. However, I was pleasantly surprised by Dean Stockwell.
Yeah, you liked his technique?
I thought when he was doing a bit of shadow boxing, his jab was quite good.
There you go.
I thought he did a few moves. In fact, so much so that I did a little bit of research to try and discover if he perhaps was an amateur boxer at the time. A lot of these, you find a lot of actors back in the day were.
Yeah, was he?
Golden Glove, no, he wasn't, as far as I can tell. He was a child actor, so...
Yeah. Maybe it's a skill he picked up. Or maybe just happens to look good.
Yeah, just natural. He's got a few... Yeah, he's got the natural rhythm and movements, yeah.
I was particularly amused by Sam's attempts at defending himself in the first fight.
Yeah, it was quite awkward, a bit embarrassing.
Yes.
Even the winning punch, which we'll get to.
Well, that was meant to be bad though, wasn't it?
It was illegal.
Yes.
Anyway, we can talk about that when we get to it.
It's another story where the implications are quite concentrated on a small number of people.
Mm-hmm.
Small scale, no global ramifications.
I think that's good. I think you need to have that. It can't be JFK every week or Vietnam.
Or any week so far.
Precisely.
Before we get into it, social media, you can, as always, find us on YouTube a week early or everywhere else a week late, depending on how you look at it. That's the Columbo Podcast Productions YouTube channel. Our social accounts are at Leap Home Podcast on Twitter and on Instagram, and we're at The Leap Home on Facebook. You can leave reviews for us, and please do, at Apple Podcasts. That's the place where we would appreciate it most, but also IMDb and various other...
I think these is actually, we would appreciate it most on YouTube. Thumbs up, subscribe, smash, all that stuff.
Yeah, so these are the one-offs, but if you, every week, leave us all those good things on YouTube.
Even if you don't listen to us on YouTube, you could, if you wanted to, give us a subscribe and a thumbs up.
Yeah, don't smash anything though, it's not good for your computer.
Smash the like.
Or your phone.
Snapchat?
We are on Snapchat, but no one's found me yet.
Not yet.
Well, I've not logged into the account for weeks. So
well, you never know.
Anyhow, shall we take a closer look at this one?
Let's crack on.
No cold open in this one, we go straight to the credits.
Do we not get a premise, a recap?
Well, I thought that was part of the credits, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a
first season credit.
It certainly there wasn't anything to do with this week's story.
No.
Yeah. So you've got Sam. Yes. So I've put in Sam narrated opening credits.
Sure.
And he's still doing a voiceover when we get back to a sort of mini recap of last week's story.
Before we find ourselves in a boxing ring on a small hall show, as it's called here.
I should note that we never find out the ramifications of what he did last week. Certainly not the immediate. We don't get an update on the future of Gerry or Jamie Lee.
See, that's interesting. It's, I suppose, a question. Is that something we will come to get?
Well, I think we might hear more about his own stake in the story.
Well, yeah, I think I mentioned that last week. That's obviously the start of a larger objective.
But I don't believe we'll come to hear about the other two, or Oscar.
I meant to say as well, when you were giving us some of the trivia last week, you mentioned Terry Hatcher, that being her only episode. Bit of a spoiler, she obviously doesn't, unless another actor takes on the role.
It's been known.
It has, yeah. Anyway, we're not last week, we're this week.
Yes, sorry. Sam takes a punch, he's almost knocked out, but manages to crawl back to his feet.
Yeah, I mean, I think he doesn't make the count as far as I can tell. But in any case...
Well, that's what I've said. The ref dubiously allows him to continue in the fight.
He takes another beating before delivering an illegal backhanded shot, which somehow manages to knock out his opponent.
Yeah, and he tries to apologise for it.
Sorry, did that hurt?
He gets sent to the corner by the ref where he collapses, clearly still a little bit non-compos mentis.
In the changing room afterwards, his team clear out photographers and other hangers-on as he looks at his bruised face in the mirror, and his coach asks why they almost lost their last fight together.
And there was a poster on the wall which I looked into to see if it was advertising a real fight.
Was it?
So it was between Joe Kid Galahad Gallagher and Tommy Thompson. So no, obviously Kid Galahad was the Elvis character. And Bogart before that.
Yeah, there is a British fighter these days, Kid Galahad, named after that.
Also better at singing and dancing than fighting.
Well, he learned a harsh lesson fairly recently.
The supporting fight between Corey and Wilbur, again, these don't seem to be real boxers.
No.
But it was worth looking into.
It was.
Yes, Sam's trainer clears the room and Sam examines his injuries in the mirror, where we get a brief look at who he is portraying this week. Or inhabiting, maybe a better word.
At this point, Sam, he wonders why his opponent went down so easily. And the coach asks if he's okay, saying that, you were hit pretty good.
Yeah, they obviously think he should know what was going on. If Sam kind of catches on to that here, he kind of gets the idea that maybe this fight was predetermined.
Yeah, because his second says that he hit him too good. And Sam asks what he means, only to be sent to the showers by his coach.
On his way, he bumps into a couple of nuns.
Yeah, after he drops his shorts.
Yes. They remind Sam that they were left his contract. They inherited it from somebody, I think. Did you get the whole story there?
Yes, it was his contract was left as part of a will to the church. So they effectively own him or own his contract.
So what does that mean? That means that they get his winnings?
Well, whatever the contract is, his manager has got a contract with or his previous manager had a contract with Sam. So if that entitles them to whatever percentage of his winnings, yeah. Okay. But they clearly know nothing about the sport the way the rabbit on. Indeed.
Outside, one of the nuns shows Sam what they're going to build with his winnings.
Yeah, they're on Wasteland, and he is given a tour by the younger of the nuns.
Loved his outfit in this one, the stylish checked trousers and the leather jacket.
The flares.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good look. And I like the whole sort of Wasteland setting as well. It reminds me a bit of Rocky.
Yes. The nun, I think this is Sister Angela.
Yes.
She explains that all they need is for him to win his next fight, but he says not to count on him so much. But she says all the nuns are counting on him and he's going to become California champion with his next win. And how can he lose with 10 victories in a row?
Yeah, now, see, I'm not really, maybe I'm looking at this a little bit too much, but I'm not sure how they're going to finance a church by getting a percentage of his winnings. This isn't world title stuff. This is, we find it's a California heavyweight champion.
Yeah, there's not a lot of money in this.
Not a lot of money, no. I mean,
and I assume the nuns aren't gambling.
Well, that's what I was going to say, unless they're betting on them. So they're going to get a percentage of a fairly small purse.
Yeah, so I had this question much later on in the episode, but we could answer it now. I don't know. I guess that this is why he donates them money later on.
Yeah, I'm thinking the audience is meant to believe that there is big money at stake here, but it doesn't really make that much sense.
No, unless it's part of some sort of dodgy activity. You know, there's lots of maybe money laundering going on or something through the fight.
Yeah, but the nuns wouldn't.
Well, Sam's not meant to win it though, is he? So maybe this other guy's meant to win all this money and then his team are able then to clean up. Who knows? It's not explained. And we never find out.
Yeah, Daniel Kinahan's probably involved somewhere.
Let's say the little as possible about that.
Okay. Anyway, he is not comfortable with the situation he finds himself in, especially after, as you say, being told that all the other nuns are counting on him to beat Tiger Joe Jackson and become the next heavyweight champion. Now, again, Sam, well, you're only seeing Scott Bakula's body, but the person he was fighting against there didn't look any bigger than, say, a middleweight.
No.
So I'm not sure why he's meant to be a heavyweight.
Well, maybe they're carrying a few extra pounds.
In any case, Sam warns her to be cautious, but she thinks it's all going to plan. A sentiment Al disagrees with.
Yeah, but it's not going according to Ziggy's plan. He figured this sleep would land you in Texas somewhere in the mid-50s.
Oh, great.
That's the spirit. Now, until you win, we're going to be scarce on funds, so we'd really appreciate it if you could move in with us to save us on food and housing expenses.
Sounds better than rent control.
Oh, well...
It's done then. Why don't you go get your things and I'll meet you back at St. Mary's. Have faith, Kid Cody. You know, I have a feeling that between you and I and a couple of guardian angels, we're gonna get this job done.
Who does she remind you of?
Ingrid Bergman.
No. You. You and me both back in the old days when we were trying to raise funding for the imaging chamber. We were poring over the blueprints and that was our dream, you know, our chapel. Remember? Nah, you don't remember.
Oh, look at this. Sacramento, California. Yeah, 1974. Tell Ziggy that's a long way from Texas in the 50s.
Well, Ziggy figures it's just a unscheduled stop.
Well, in case you and Ziggy haven't noticed, they're all unscheduled stops. The only thing I'm scheduled to do here is to get my brains knocked out.
Don't fight.
Well, what if that's what I'm supposed to do? What if I'm here to win the championship so Sister Angela can get her chapel?
Well, then, you're in big trouble, Sam. Oh.
Al seems a little bit sleepy.
Yeah, whilst Sam wants answers, he is more interested in having a nap due to a noisy neighbour.
Yes, working on his car during the night, apparently keeping Al awake. So he says.
Well, yeah. And then from the sky, we see the clouds part and a celestial light shine through. Very Blues Brothers-esque. You've not seen the Blues Brothers, I imagine.
I've seen the first half and then I got bored.
Okay.
I thought a lot of the look and feel this reminded me of Sister Act, obviously with the nuns, but you've got the same sort of, it's nuns not being nuns.
Sure.
Kind of lighthearted, and this particular nun, Sister Angela's got that same sort of not aesthetic, but same sort of feel to her.
I'd have went for Nuns on the Run.
It's a slightly different nun-based comedy.
Yeah, I liked it.
Did you?
Yeah, it's good.
Who's your favourite?
Eric Idle.
Yeah, well, it's hard to get past Eric Idle if he's in anything. Anyway, later on, sorry, before we move on, I don't understand this thing about him having to move in to save money when he's got an apartment that he stays in with his girlfriend.
Yeah, I was wondering that myself. What I came up with was that if they have got a management contract, maybe that part of that would be there'd be some sort of payment.
Okay.
So they'd look after him, give him room and board, or they would pay for that.
Right. So he's going to move in with them and let his girlfriend pay the full rent that he was otherwise subsidising.
Well, potentially, yeah, but they're saying, yeah, so part of the contract, they will, or his old manager would have looked after him, given him room and board.
Yep.
But now they can't afford that, so they'll move in there and reduce the amount of
the costs.
The costs.
Okay. So the next time we see him, I think he's outside. Yeah,
it's outside the chapel, the church gym, and as he's about to enter, a goon shouts on him and tells him that a Mr. Edwards wants to see him.
Yes, Edwards, who is in the back of the car.
It's a limousine.
They pull Sam in between them and ask him what the hell he was doing during the fight.
Yeah, he's clearly not happy with Sam's performance, but prevents him from speaking so that he can listen to the radio report on the upcoming Rumble in the Jungle.
Ali and Foreman.
Indeed.
The man, Edward, says he's going to be betting on that, but not as much as he's putting on Sam's next fight.
Yeah.
Now Sam immediately starts to feel a little bit uncomfortable and says, I wouldn't be doing that if I was you.
Well, I think he says he's thinking of retiring, which is not what Edward wants to hear.
No, he's threatened with a kneecapping at this stage if he tries to retire, and he walks it back very quickly.
I quite liked, I think Sam talks in the style of Brando. You know, he could have been a contender. I think he does that cliched.
Yeah, it tries to mimic what he thinks they're looking for, maybe.
Yeah.
Edwards tells him that Sam will go in the tank against Tiger Joe and he'll be told the round later on, and then gives him some money.
Mm-hmm. Also, maybe it was just me, I think there was a small section here, there was some really deplorable ADR, some bad dubbing.
Was there?
Yeah, in this scene.
Okay. I didn't pick up.
Anyhow. Yeah, he shoved out of the car with this money that's been given to him, and he looks at the sky and states that he hopes they know what they are doing. So is this a reference to them being the Quantum Leap project, or is it...
Well, whoever decides where he leaps to, I suppose.
Or is it God?
Well, it might be the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like I say, then we get this voiceover in an apartment where he says he's apparently on the take, and he lives above a bar in an apartment that's decorated like a gym.
Yeah, he's very unimpressed with his surroundings and his clothes. Thinking that he may have another boxer roommate, he calls out, but is met with a bouncing, bubbly blonde called Dixie, who kisses him and mentions her dancing job.
Yeah, she had to dance for an extra 45 minutes because the creep she works for wouldn't let her off early to catch his fight.
I have to admit, I mentioned it, I think, in one of the first episode we recorded. This was one that stood out for me as a teenage boy. I always remember thinking, that Sam should definitely avail himself of what was clearly on offer.
I mean, it's heavily implied that he does.
I think so, we'll get to that.
Yeah. She asks him if he's hungry and says she's made his favourite, but she says it's one of his favourites, not knowing what it is.
Right. She then takes his winnings and puts it, with her tips, into a secret hidey hole, which she reveals is for their what?
It's their rainy day fund.
For a donut shop. Donuts again.
So they're trying to get 20,000 is what I took from this.
Yeah. And why do they need a donut shop?
Because of the sprinkles and stuff.
Yeah, but more to do with the fact that her dripping mountains are no longer up to paying the bills, and they certainly won't be in the coming years.
He can't fight forever.
Yeah.
She says that she loves him as he's the first man who's ever trusted her with his money.
I like this relationship. I think it's genuine and strong and loving.
I hope Sam doesn't ruin it.
Yeah. Now, we'll get to this shortly. I've got big questions, not just about this episode, but the implications it has for the whole show. But let's wait a little bit.
Okay.
Let's get to the bit where they probably bang.
A man called Roscoe comes to the door looking for money.
Yeah, he's a sleazy looking chap, and as we heard at the top of the podcast, Dixie doesn't take kindly to these fools.
No, she tells Sam he needs to pay up what he owes or they'll beat him up. So she gets the money and drops it on the floor in front of this guy before slamming the door to break his nose.
I like the crunching sound sound effect you have. I think Dixie's great in this.
She's very good. I don't think Sam treats her with a great deal of respect, though.
You don't think so?
Especially not what he asks her to do later on, and the way he does it.
Yeah, that is potentially an issue. Potentially. But again, on the other hand...
Well, she's clearly unhappy about it when he does it, when he suggests it. We'll come to this.
Yeah,
we'll come to this. Sam now tries to leave, having just arrived, saying he's going to stay with the nuns because they own him.
And she can't believe, understandably, that he would rather live with them than her. And when he tells her it's because they own him, what does she do?
She drops her top and says that she thought they owned one another. And he looks quite excited about this.
Yeah, he does. He takes in the tempting sight, and we cut to the church with Amazing Grace playing in the background. So this is the point here. Yeah, do we think that Sam done the deed.
Yeah, I mean, there's no implication that he walked out or made her unhappy.
Exactly. This, as I mentioned a moment ago, is a bigger question I have. I mean, I think we might have mentioned it last week, but okay, so if they're in a relationship where they're at it like rabbits, and as a kid, like I said, I'm thinking, Sam, do this. And then I thought, before we recorded this podcast, yeah, I mean, these days you shouldn't be doing that, taking advantage. But is it taking advantage? If that is how this character acts, should Sam not be doing what this person does? Because when this person comes back into their body, it's going to be weird. It's like, oh, see that last night you said no to me? That's the first time you've ever refused me. Yeah. It's going to cause
from
problems.
Dixie's point of view, yeah, it's the same person. But from Cody's point of view, he's going to come back and say, well, it wasn't me the last few days, so...
Well, that's the thing. What does he remember? What does he know?
For me?
Yeah. I think there is big issues here that have to be addressed. But okay, so let's look just at the ethical or the moral issue in terms of Sam, not just from a physical point of view, but we can use that as an example. Do you think he should be doing this? If Dixie wants this, expects this, if this is how this character acts, should he? I mean, he doesn't know how long he's going to be there. He could leap into a relationship where he's sleeping in the same bed with her for 2 weeks, and they expect things to be the way they normally are, and maybe they're quite frequent. So, what should Sam do?
It's a good.
I'm asking you.
No, I don't have an answer. I don't know. I think it's something Sam should have thought of before rushing into the
just jumping in
chamber.
Yeah. And it's not just so having sex. That's the obvious sort of ethical dilemma. But as we discussed last week as well, should he manipulate people in other ways?
Well, he does.
He does, yeah. So is having sex any worse?
But it's just
playing with your emotions.
Is it possible not to manipulate people once you're in that position?
You have to manipulate. That's the whole point. The premise of it here isn't it that you've got to manipulate an event or a circumstance to leap back out. You've got to do something that's different. You've got to change things.
And also, Al tells him at the start, it's important that they don't think you're not who you appear to be.
Yeah.
So I would say then, ultimately, yes, it is incumbent on him to act like that person would have acted, even if it is personally, morally challenging.
Yeah. Okay.
That'd be my first answer, not necessarily my final answer.
You're fine, Sam. Go and see Dixie.
Yeah, on you go.
Whistling Dixie.
We then go to the chapel gym where Sam has brought his bags to move in, and he lies down on a bed and sings along to, I think, like you say, Amazing Grace is being practiced by the choir, maybe?
Yeah, it looks like a sort of mood of contemplation or reflection. However, this is interrupted by what?
A snoring Al
on the floor beside him. Not only that, but he is talking to Denise.
In his sleep. Yeah. He's telling her to get in the closet before Tina shows up. And then telling Tina that there are no other girls there.
So it's interesting, isn't it, that, again, Al is written as a very likeable character.
Sleaze.
But yeah, today he doesn't come across as... I'm not sure you would write this character today like that, would you?
No, he definitely wouldn't.
No?
No, people would turn on him.
I mean, him and Sam are the heroes of the show.
Yeah.
You're meant to root for it, Al. Or even, I don't know, where are you back then?
I think you are. And yeah, you don't care about Tina. You don't see Tina, so why do we care about her feelings? She's just a woman.
I mean, I think, yeah, you're meant to laugh and go, oh, there's Al, what's he like?
Yeah. You're not meant to think, poor Tina, what's this guy done to her this time?
Yeah. In any case, he wakes up and we see that he's wearing a spectacular golden metallic bomber jacket.
That is something special.
It is brilliant. I wonder if you can buy that. I wonder if that's available.
That exact one or just one like it?
Well, yeah, either or.
Yeah, well, you could look into that.
And Sam criticises him for his obviously guilty conscience.
Yeah, he explains to him, though, that Denise is a writer who's going to write his life story. So
that's another point worth discussing. Al is obviously famous enough, notorious enough, to have a biography written about him.
Apparently. Unless that's just a line that she spun him.
No, I don't think so.
No. Apparently she's like a fantastic pair of boxing gloves. Another reference that you probably wouldn't make in today's... I bet you in the reboot they don't mention anything like that.
But he is more concerned about the vroom vroom and the muffler problem.
Yes, mentioned earlier on. Ziggy apparently thinks that Sam's best shot is just to win the fight because of all the unknown variables.
But Sam points out there's some obvious problems there.
Yeah, he's not a good boxer.
No.
He's not in any good physical condition and he's not got a trainer.
Al thinks he has the solution.
He'll train him.
Yeah, he was an ex-Golden Gloves champion when he was 16.
Sam, however, points out the impracticality of this arrangement.
Yeah, he asks him to throw a punch, make a connection.
Not possible.
So, despite Al's protest, Sam leaves to get a real trainer, and in the dark, we see he seems genuinely disappointed as he says to himself that day he was good.
Yeah, it's interesting that Al's able to stay in the room after Sam leaves. I thought they were tied to one another to a certain extent.
Yeah, that's a good point, because now, with this, what we can do then is we can assume that Al could effectively become a spy.
Well, can he? Yeah. Or is there a limit to how far away from Sam he can be?
We need to find that out, because, yeah, Sam could say, in other situations, go and listen in.
I'm sure he does. I'm sure I remember that happening, either looking through a wall or finding out something that's happening somewhere else.
Yeah.
That may be a bad recollection, but
okay.
I feel that might happen eventually.
Anyway, we head down to a downtown bar.
Sam is served a smoking and slightly unhygienic cocktail.
Yes. It's a TKO. That's what it's called. That's his usual.
It's handled, or the ice, I think it's handled by everyone at the bar.
Yes. As taking care of business plays on the jukebox. He sits down beside his old trainer, Gomez.
Yes, and asks him to train him one more time.
Yeah, after removing a splinter from the drink.
I think it's in his mouth by this point, but yeah.
Yeah. But he doesn't want to train someone who takes a dive. He's got principles.
But Sam says he's not going to take a dive this time, but then Edwards shows up and things get a bit more awkward.
Yeah, with his entourage. He gets him a round of drinks, and then he reveals something.
Yes, Gomez previously took dives for him, losing therefore the moral high ground.
He walks off, and the clearly now humiliated and annoyed Gomez has changed his mind.
Yes, on the basis that Sam will genuinely do his best to show that guy up, he will train him.
We're now in the boxing ring inside the church. Sam is with Gomez and Sister Angela. He's about to spar when Dixie totters in, gives him a big kiss.
She does. She's going to watch him spar with a priest.
It's a very old man.
Yes. Did you like Sam's technique here?
No, I didn't like Sam's technique in any of the...
He's meant to be bad.
Yeah, that's true. Within seconds he finds himself out cold, despite the encouragement of Dixie and the nuns.
Yes, Gomez asks Sister Angela if she's been changing his style, and then tells Sam that he doesn't need a trainer, he needs a miracle.
Yeah, quite like this. He's lying on his back with lipstick round his mouth when water is thrown on him to bring him round.
We then get a Rocky-style montage, which is very good for note-taking.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, we certainly do. It shows that not only can he not box, but he is extremely unfit.
But Sister Angela and Gomez are going to try and whip him into shape.
Now, here's the thing, another question. If he takes the form of the person that he leaps into, surely he would have the strength and the fitness, but not the skill.
We've already learned that he doesn't.
Have we?
Or have we?
No, he won't necessarily be able to have skills. It's still him, but he should have. Like if he leaps into someone who's 6'5", okay, and 18 stone, for example, he wouldn't just have his own strength, and he's got the physical bulk of that person.
Still to learn how to use it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I would not expect him to be a good boxer, but I would expect him to have the fitness level.
Well,
so his lung capacity won't have changed. He won't have his own lung capacity. So if this guy's in fairness, maybe this guy who drinks KOs from the bar isn't. But leaving that aside, if he leaps into the body of a boxer, he's now got the boxer's physical, the strength, the height, the weight.
And who gets the benefit of this training when he leaps back out again? Does it stay with him or does it go stay with Cody?
Well, yeah. So is he now a boxer? But Cody will have certain skills anyway. He was a boxer.
He was a pretend boxer, wasn't he? All the fights were fixed.
No, but you don't get to that stage. What happens is you become a boxer. You are a boxer, and then you decide. Someone says, "Listen, take a dive." It's not. You don't pluck a man off the street who can't fight. It's these guys who take dives are boxers who decide just to take a dive.
The implication I got from this episode is that Sam's physical condition is relevant.
But I
don't. It's a sort of combination.
Yeah, but I'm saying he would get his bulk when he leaps into the body of a woman.
Yeah,
he takes on her form.
Okay.
I'm imagining he'll take on her he takes on her size, her strength.
Does he?
Yeah, I'd have thought so. You're manifesting that person's physical being.
Maybe it's all psychological then.
Yeah.
We see him next out on the road with Sister Angela on her bike.
Yes, and we hear why the new chapel is so important to her.
When I was a child, I lived in a castle.
What?
Well, a pretend castle. It was actually a tree house in the backyard. My mother and my brother used to call me a princess. I really felt like one. And one night I went to sleep dreaming all these sweet dreams, and I woke up coughing into the face of a fireman. My mother and my father, both my little brothers, were killed. For some unknown reason, I was spared. So I was shuffled around for a while from uncle to uncle, and it seemed I was a princess without a castle. Some really bad things happened, and I ended up out on the street doing whatever I could to survive. I began to hate everybody. Even myself, even God. And then one night, I kind of stumbled into this Skid Row chapel in San Francisco. I was looking for a place to sleep, and a nun found me, and she took me in, and she, well, maybe she didn't save my life, but she absolutely saved my soul. She gave me new hope and self-respect. She even gave me faith in God again. And I decided at that moment that I would create a chapel someday in the most destitute part of the city to help people like myself, to make a memorial for my family.
Another castle.
A really quite harrowing tale there.
Bad things happened.
Oh, yeah, that's for the type of show it is, it was quite
Dark.
dark, yeah. Which is not a criticism, which is good.
Yeah, but
Unexpected.
yeah. Yeah.
We return to another montage.
This one's a better montage. He's improving now.
Yeah, we see him motivated. He's training hard, which finishes when Al tells him he's not too bad. He gives him the thumbs up, has a seal of approval.
I'm sure that'll make all the difference.
Yeah.
Al also explains to him what happened in the true history.
Yeah, but he has to take him into the ring.
Yes, to get away from listening ears.
Sorry, yeah, and what's the bad news that he receives?
Cody took a dive in the first round, and the chapel was never built, and it's now like a strip mall.
Oh well, at least Dixie can work there.
Not that kind of strip.
Oh, right. But Sam points out that is what he's there to do, to change. That's what's going to happen when he beats Tiger Joe.
Yeah, that's the whole concept of the show.
Yeah. Al, do you not understand this? Yeah, that's the bad thing.
Changing history.
Al tells him that he should be able to make it to the fight if he can do something to stop the vroom vrooming. And Sam suggests recording the noises and then playing it back to the neighbour when he's asleep to make his point.
How's that going to work?
That would be, yeah, for you to record, even if it's loud coming through like
it won't
a wall.
pick up that loud, and you're not going to play it back loud enough.
Exactly. So you get how are you going to record it with a microphone and then
there's a guy outside my window playing really quiet car noises.
Yeah. It's a terrible idea.
Yeah, it's awful. Back in the bar, Edwards shows up and says he's heard that Sam is training seriously. They have some chat about this upcoming Ali Foreman fight, and there's a streaker on the news.
Yeah, but before that, does Edwards, I think he suggests that Sam might be getting religion.
Indeed. He tells Sam to take his dive in round 1, but Sam refuses and suggests that he tells Edwards what round to bet. Back in Dixie's apartment, Sam is asking her to streak at the fight. This is the bit we talked about earlier on, where he's not particularly respectful of her concerns.
Yeah, okay, so he is asking her to trust him on 2 counts, to put their life savings on a round prediction, and for her, to streak so that he has a chance of KOing Tiger Joe Jackson. Now, first of all, someone streaking...
It would stop the fight.
Well, no, she doesn't even streak in the ring.
Yeah.
the opponent, the chances of him firstly even being aware of it, and secondly, it's like if you in boxing matches these days, there can be absolute riots in the crowds and the boxing goes on.
Yeah.
And also between rounds you have ring girls and things. You know, having a pretty woman isn't going to necessarily distract a professional boxer to the extent, oh, look at that, and he turns around and watches a nudie woman.
Happens. The implication here is that this bet they're placing is on Sam to win in that round, so it needs to work.
Yes. Now, yeah, the dilemma you've got here, the problem is asking Dixie to do this. And
yeah, she says it's clear that she feels disrespected because she says, why don't you get the nun to do it? Yeah,
but he has a point. Like your job is to take off clothes for money. The same thing here. We're asking you. Except it's now me who's asking you to take off clothes for our money that we can get out of this mess. I mean, you're happy to do it for a few dollars.
Well, that's her choice, though. She's not been pressured. Well,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's fine. You're right. That's her choice. He should not be forcing her. He's asking her. He's not. It's Sam, so he's not forcing her. So it's like, what? Your job is to strip for money. I'm asking you to strip for money.
Yeah, he does try to persuade her anyway, and we head back to the chapel where Sister Angela is very unhappy.
Yeah, she tells him that Edwards was looking for him and passes on the message that he has to go down in the first, and then hands him an envelope with $1,000 in it.
She thought that God had sent her a champion, but he's actually sent her a cheat.
So an embarrassed Sam tells her that he's not the same Kid Cody who fixed fights in the past, and assures her that he's going to try and win. But I don't think she's particularly convinced by this.
No, she literally does not believe him, and she says she doesn't believe in anything anymore. And he says that's unfortunate because his only hope was based on the fact that she believed in him.
Yeah, and he begs her not to give up on him if she wants the castle.
And now it's fight night.
The boxers are introduced into the ring. Sam is 185 pounds, whilst Jackson is 207. These days, Sam would be a cruiserweight. To give you, like, the Rumble in the Jungle, Foreman was 220 and Ali was 216. So Sam is far, far, far too light to be a... Well, again, maybe back then, I'm not sure what the limits were, because cruiserweight didn't exist. Cruiserweights are fairly new, but you'd be a really light heavyweight. Look at that, the difference there between 185 and his opponent at 207. That's huge.
Yeah. Sam looks around for Al, but he's concerned not to see him there.
Instead, he makes eye contact with Sister Angela, and the bell goes, and Sam decides to take the Rocky approach of defending punches with his face.
Yes. Jackson starts the stronger and knocks Sam down in the first round.
Yeah, within seconds.
It seems like Sam might not need to take the dive, having been legitimately knocked out, but he gets inspiration from Sister Angela's disappointment and forces himself to his feet. It has a joke with the referee.
Yeah, and then we get the Rocky turnaround as Sam goes on the offensive before finding himself again being pummeled in the corner.
See, I quite like this. So a couple of times it seems like Sam's going to come roaring back, and then no, he's just getting punched again. At this point, he nods to Dixie to start her streak, which outrages the nuns, but distracts Jackson according to plan, allowing Sam to knock him down, and Sam believes into the fight.
Yeah, this Al appears, but the celebrations are short-lived, as, a bit like Tyson Fury, Jackson beats the count himself.
He does, but despite Sam's surprise at this, Al is able to talk him through the next phase of the fight before Jackson responds once more.
I liked Al's advice to use the jab and go downstairs.
Well, there was quite a lot of below-the-belt punching in that first fight, so I wondered if they was going to go for that again, but no. Al offers the kind of support that only a hologram can, by standing behind the opponent and using his hand to show Sam where to punch. Surely Sam knows where to punch, it's just doing it that's the problem.
Exactly. But this is the thing, Sam's concerns or criticism earlier was about Al that he because he's a hologram he couldn't punch. These days that's the type of thing that you probably have. You know, there is virtual boxing emulators, whatever it is. Yeah, I mean it's maybe not in professional gyms, but I'm sure it's something that you can do. Even I suppose a computer game,
a VR thing.
Yeah.
With Al's help, Sam is able to knock out Jackson in the first round, and the nuns celebrate, but Edwards looks very unhappy.
In the changing room after, Dixie enters and we discover what the bet was that Sam convinced her to place.
Here come the jelly-filled, sugar-glazed, and sprinkles on top.
He won?
Yes, in the 8th round, just like you predicted, honey.
What are you talking about?
Muhammad Ali. We bet everything we had that he'd knock out Foreman in the 8th round in Zari, and he just did it a couple seconds ago.
That's the round you told Edwards to bet on.
Yeah, only I didn't believe him. How'd you know, kid?
Well, when you're fighting for the Lord, you get inside tips.
It was fixed. It was fixed, and somehow you got wind of it.
It wasn't fixed.
Then how else would you have known?
Say I got a hunch and had faith.
I did too. You and me had a deal. You were going to go down in the first round.
Dixie?
Roscoe.
I got your money. It's just not here.
We bet all of our savings and $1,000 you gave me to take a dive on Ali in the 8th. Roscoe here, he owes us a grand total of
$48,000. 20 for us, 20 for Sister Angela's chapel, and 8 for you, Jake.
If that's not enough, I guess you're gonna have to kill me.
Roscoe? Yeah. Looks to me like you owe I and my partners here some money.
Yeah, well, okay. You take a check?
Shut your face.
Oh, forget about it. I'm just kidding. It's kind of a joke there,
Yeah, I've got a few problems with that outcome there. They're not seeing that money. So Roscoe owes to 3 different parties.
Yeah.
He will firstly, for sure, give Edwards the money.
Grand, yeah.
And then after that, he's just skipping town. He's disappearing. They're not getting their money.
Neither are the nuns.
That's what I mean, yeah. Edwards will get paid because of the fear factor, but that's it. So they're leaving this to Roscoe. No chance. 2 other points. You've got a bit of the Back to the Future
Almanac. It's very Back to the Future.
Yeah, so this is the type of thing that...
It's also the thing that he warned himself against, or Al warned me against last week, about interfering with your own future. It's not his own future, but in this case, he's using future knowledge.
So what's to prevent every other episode where there's some person, some family in trouble or in need, and he just decides to gamble, he knows the result of something, and he gambles and gives them lots of money. He can make these people millionaires, billionaires.
I like the fact it's very American, the fact you have to gamble with a guy in a bar.
Yeah,
it's not like it would be over here where you just go to a bookies and bet.
But the other thing as well is that because of that, they're putting so much money. You see, I've got an issue with that as well, what you said. When you bet in any sport, when you bet something very, very specific, there are generally limits because the odds are very high and you're very suspicious, especially in boxing, which was known for people taking dives. If you had to go to a bookie and put a massive amount on a very specific, which, it doesn't matter how knowledgeable you are about a sport, it's like predicting a correct score in football. You put small bets on because the chances of it happening. So predicting a round and someone comes up to you and says, I'm going to put all this money on, you wouldn't take the bet. You'd be very suspicious.
Yeah.
You couldn't get that bet on.
Unless you just thought he's an idiot, because obviously we saw at the start he was losing a lot of money to the bookie.
Maybe. But here's the thing again then. So he has now affected the perception of the Rumble in the Jungle. So Edwards and the rest of them will be very suspicious that he's managed. He thinks that Foreman is taking a dive. That starts to spread out, and it does the rounds. The rumours go, there's this guy
boxing and grilling or something.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of impact this would have on the
I'm
wider.
Sure that would spread through the entire boxing community, would it? They don't have online forums to discuss all this on. Or?
No, but people who know, like the gamblers, the gangsters who are involved in it spreads between in that circle.
I wonder if we can assume that because he leaps, they do get the money, or is it just that the fact he didn't take the dive was what he had to do? It doesn't matter about the money. The money maybe wasn't the objective.
Yeah,
it was restoring Sister Angela's faith in men and people generally.
I think she needed the money for the chapel.
Yeah, but you can get by without a chapel.
Anyway, as Dixie goes to collect the money, Sam tells her to hurry back, and she passes Sister Angela, who is coming in.
Yeah, so she is thrilled that she's going to get her chapel, and Sam explains that there's extra money coming on top of what she's won from the fight, And she explains back that she had lost her faith in everything until he got up off the canvas. And she thanks him with a kiss. Is that what nuns do?
Not usually, I've thought.
For delivering this chapel and restoring her faith. I wonder if this is a reference to the Bible story of Thomas, who only believed when he was actually shown something happen.
Yeah, well, I've got a note here as well, and I've mentioned this a few times in different episodes. He tells her that she didn't doubt God.
But she did.
She did.
She didn't have faith. She's been shown that he wasn't lying. That's not having faith. So having faith is believing it before it was shown.
Yeah. But what it tells us here is, Sam, the scientist, is now, I think it's undeniable that he is a religious person. There's been quite a few
indeed
references.
And I think in the reboot, the guy leaping's also a religious person. I read that in one of the articles about that one, so that'll be interesting.
Okay. In any case, things seem to have worked out well for everyone.
Yes, so he leaps.
He does. Into a farm, standing in mud and holding a squealing pig.
And that's the end.
It is.
Got to love a montage sequence for note taking.
It's brilliant, isn't it?
Dreams for every episode.
Yeah, that and large extended fight scenes. They're quite good. And you can just take one line, they have a fight, and Shatner wins.
Well, usually. Yeah, so I've got the question then. We've already talked about this, about did the nuns bet, or is it just winnings? I don't understand how they're going to build a chapel if you hadn't given them the extra 20 grand.
Yeah.
But who knows?
Yeah, because I mean...
And then my other question you've also answered, do you think Roscoe ever paid up?
No,
fair enough. Any other thoughts about this?
No, just that, like I say, we've covered them all. It's one of the ones that stands. Dixie as a kid stood out for me, and I think we've now justified the fact that my teenage self was correct in thinking that he should definitely have went for it when it was available.
Okay, some trivia.
Go for it.
Originally aired in America on the 7th of April 1989. Directed by Gilbert M. Shilton. This was the first of his 4 Quantum Leap episodes.
Peter's brother, apparently.
Indeed. He's also known for his work on The A-Team, Knight Rider, MacGyver, Law and Order, and others. He's now 77 years old. I think he still does some direction.
Does it?
John Hill wrote the episode, not to be confused with the musician John Hill, who's had a glittering career with awards and stuff. This was the first of his 2 scripts for the show. He was also the supervising producer on a further 5 episodes. And he wrote and produced L.A. Law, as well as writing for shows like Diagnosis and Murder. He died in 2017 when he was 70, and there's a tenuous Columbo connection. His big break in Hollywood was writing the 1976 TV movie Griffin and Phoenix, which starred Peter Falk.
Yeah, tenuous.
It's okay, there's a better one coming.
Good.
Michelle Joyner played Sister Angela. This was her only Quantum Leap appearance, but she also appeared in shows like 21 Jump Street, Knots Landing, and The X-Files, as well as 90s films like Cliffhanger and Outbreak.
Was she any relation to the female runner from the...
Flojo?
Yeah.
No. She's now 60 years old and is still acting.
Good.
Terry Copley played Dixie. This is our only episode of Quantum Leap. You'll remember her from Murder, She Wrote. She's also in Blossom, We Got It Made. She's now 61 years old.
Any other trivia?
No.
She wasn't in Playboy?
Is this your personal trivia?
No, I'm just wondering.
I'm sure that's entirely possible.
Definitely wasn't in Playboy.
I'm pretty sure she probably was.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
Guy Stockwell played...
Who? What?
Jake Edwards. He's the older brother of Dean Stockwell. This was his only Quantum Leap appearance, and he was a relatively prolific actor, showing up in episodes of things like Murder, She Wrote, T.J. Hooker, Knight Rider, Rawhide, and he was in one episode of Columbo. He was the club owner in Columbo Goes to College.
Was he?
Which was his last screen appearance before his death in 2002 from complications of diabetes at the age of 68.
That's a good connection. Last ever appearance. If you've got to have a last appearance, you may as well be in Columbo, yeah.
Alex Colon played Gomez, the trainer. This was his only Quantum Leap.
Alex who?
Colon.
He smells lovely, I bet you.
That's a very childish joke. This was part of a prolific career. Saw him appear on shows like Murder, She Wrote. It's the same as everybody else. The A-Team, Hill Street Blues, and films like The Mighty Quinn and Death of an Angel. He died in 1995 when he was 53.
Oh, how did he die? Must be some sort of illness. Or get hit by a bus.
Who knows? Nancy Culp, whose father was called Robert Culp, but spelt differently from the Columbo legend, played Sister Sarah, the older of the nuns. This was her only Quantum Leap appearance, but she's maybe best known for her roles on The Bob Cummings Show and The Beverly Hillbillies. Prior to her appearance in Quantum Leap, she'd made an unsuccessful run for Congress in 1984, and she died from cancer in 1991 when she was 69. Louis Arquette, who I don't think is part of the Arquette acting dynasty.
That sounds familiar, Louis Arquette, actually.
Well, we'll come back to this. This was his only episode of Quantum Leap, but he was also in an array of films like Little Nicky, Scream 2, Tango and Cash.
I mean, Scream is a...
Yeah?
Well, obviously,
maybe there's a connection. Yeah. I didn't actually, to be honest, look into it too hard. Because it's not really that important. You can look into it while I talk if you like. He's also been in series like Murder One, Seinfeld and Sledgehammer.
Oh, that's Sledgehammer, yeah, that's the Arquette's father.
He played Jacob in the episode Witless.
Yeah, no, that's the family. That's the father of the whole family.
Okay, he's definitely part of the Arquette dynasty.
Yes.
That's what I said at the start.
Okay.
You get confused. Don't you edit this to make it sound like I said something
different? No, I'll just leave it as is. Yeah, no, I remember him in Witless, yeah.
He also appeared in an episode of Mrs. Columbo in 1979.
Well, there we go.
Tenuous connection, and had a recurring role on The Waltons, and he died in 2001 when he was just 65. James Cavan played Chalky, the assistant to the trainer. This was his only Quantum Leap, and he didn't have a particularly prolific screen career, though he did appear on shows like Webster, The Dukes of Hazzard, Remington Steele and Sledgehammer.
Ah.
He was a drunk in The Last of the Red Hot Vampires.
Right, okay.
Roger Hewlett played Tiger Joe Jackson. This was his only Quantum Leap episode, but he appeared in films like Roadhouse and Changeling, as well as series like The X-Files, American Horror Story and Shameless, and he's now 64 and still working. Rocky Giordani played the bartender. Again, his only episode of Quantum Leap, but he also appeared in one of your favourite movies.
What's that?
Maniac Cop.
Yes.
As well as episodes of Home Improvement, Knots Landing and Sledgehammer.
Okay.
Where he was in To Sledge with Love.
Right, there we go.
That's 3 from this one.
That's good.
Michael Strasser played the reflection of Kid Cody very briefly. This was his only appearance in Quantum Leap, but he did have more substantial roles on shows like Cagney and Lacey, where he was Bystander 1, Hill Street Blues, and Alfred Hitchcock Presents. Not much trivia on this one. Date of the fight coincided with both Ali Foreman and also the Watergate trial, which we heard about on the TV in the bar. In terms of things we learned, only really Sam doesn't remember fundraising for the Quantum Leap project. Al's not very professional, falls asleep at work. I wondered if it implied that there is a period of time between Al entering the chamber and then appearing to Sam, during which he fell asleep. So he wouldn't enter the room asleep. So I wonder if there's a slight delay between him showing up and Sam being able to see him.
Yeah, maybe. No, in terms of things we learned, I've got a few more pieces myself, yeah. So Al was a Golden Gloves champion.
Okay.
He is famous enough to have a biography written about him.
That's based on his own account, but okay.
Mm-hmm. Sam doesn't take on the physical attributes of the person. Who knows?
Yeah, wibbly wobbly.
And it looks like Sam is now being confirmed as a religious person.
Okay. Next week, we have How the Tess Was Won, where Sam has yet another romantic mess to sort out. So we will see you in 1956.
Until then,
cheerio.
Bye-bye.